Kiki, close the door for me, please. Hello, hello, everyone. How many people we have here? Like we got 3 people in the chat. Testing, 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 testing. Testing, testing. It's now 8:30. Awesome. Can you see my screen? Oh, good. All right, perfect. See, we have Joe Wise, Lisa Bishop, Slimmin TX, Ashley's, and I don't know who Slimmin TX is. We'll wait another minute or so. Oh, Facebook's getting notifications here. All right. 8:31 on my clock, so we'll wait one more minute. So do you guys know nothing about Lightroom, a little bit about Lightroom, or quite a bit, just trying to get some details? Hey, Don. Yes, I was wondering. We have 5 people watching. I think this is everybody that said that they were coming. Let me post one more thing in the group. Stream is live. Know a little. Yeah, actually, when I started out, I was doing 98% of my editing in Lightroom. Now I'm probably about, let's say about 40%, and the rest of it is in Photoshop. All right. So, of course, we'll go ahead and get started. Of course, the way that I do it is going to be different than probably what you see online or how you do it, and that's okay. I'm just going to show you a different way and how I keep my workflow organized. We'll start out. I actually went out and took some pictures today. I took about 20 shots or so, and we're actually going to start from the beginning. So whenever I come back from a photo shoot and I'm sitting in front of my computer and I am working on a Mac. I have also worked on Windows. I have my Windows PC at my office when I edit there. So I'm pretty good with both of them. So on my Mac and even on my Windows PC, I actually have a group of folders already. And as you can see here, I have my 2014 photo shoots. I have my 2015 photo shoots. We go in there, and every time that I shoot, I create another folder. I create another folder for that particular session. And you can see I have shots March 28th. I recently switched over to Mac, so this is not all of my sessions from 2015. And then I have a backup hard drive that I back everything up to. And then I also have Carbonite that's backing up online, so that way I can keep everything backed up offsite and on-site. So we'll stop that for now. All right, so when I first come in from doing a shoot, I will open up my folders using Finder in the Mac, and my most recent photo shoot was October 23rd with the Johnston family. I'm going to go ahead and hit and create a new folder here. And I keep the naming convention the same, just so I understand what's going on. And it's up to you. Today is the 28th, so 10-28-2015. And I'm going to call this the Lightroom tutorial images. So I've created a folder. So before I even open up Lightroom, that's the very first thing I do is I create a folder. Now, if I'm shooting with my Canon, I can actually, when I open up Lightroom, I can copy those over into this folder. When I'm shooting with my Sony, I can actually plug it in, it'll create a drive, and then I'll copy all of my raw files into this folder and do it that way. So I want to save a step. I don't want to have to copy from my Canon. So I will go ahead and plug up my Canon here. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And then I'm going to go ahead and open up Lightroom. You shouldn't see anything open. Well, iPhotos will try to pop up because it thinks that it's what I want to do. I'm going to quit that. I'm going to open up Lightroom. And, well, you guys probably don't have this open, but I'm going to go ahead and open the Fandango 6. So usually when you open up Lightroom, you have another catalog that's already opened. So I have this catalog open, and this is from Lightroom. This is from the Fandango. Got a lot of great shots here. But we're going to start with our new one. So I'll click on File up here at the top, and I'll do New Catalog. I try to keep all of my catalogs separated. Some people like to put all of their photos into one big folder and do it there. Why do you upload them to a folder first instead of directly importing them? On my Sony, it's just easier for me on the Sony, but on the Canon, that's what I'm doing now, is that I will copy them over that way. We're going to navigate to the folder that I created when I first started. And then I will save as, and I will do the same naming convention. Tutorials. And then I'll hit create. That will close out of our current catalog, and then open up Lightroom again with our new catalog name. I found out the coolest thing too, by the way. I can actually copy my folder. If I wanted to work on this folder on my PC at the office, I can actually copy the entire folder over to my Windows PC, and it'll still open up, which is amazing. All right, so now you can see we have a blank catalog, basically. So here is the blank catalog, and we are going to import those pictures that I took. Go to File, Import Photos and Video. And as you can see here on the left-hand side, the device is my camera. On the right-hand side, over down here, is the destination folder, and I have it set to copy. So we're going to scroll down here, and you can see down here in the list is that folder that I just created, the 1020 Lightroom folder. Before we go any further, though, you can actually come up here to the top. You can tell it not to import suspected duplicates. Build smart previews. Since I'm on my Mac, I don't have to really worry about that. And a lot of people use their, use their MacBook Pro, which has usually a smaller hard drive, and then they hook up an external drive to that. You can actually store your files onto your external hard drive, make smart previews of that, and then edit using your smart previews. It's kind of an advanced thing, so we'll kind of go past that a little fast. You can actually apply develop settings while you are importing, and then you can also actually apply metadata during your import. And right here, I have my own that I created. If you wanted to, you can create new, and then you can fill out all this information. And actually even put in your keywords, so you don't have to put in your keywords. All right, so I'm going to put this back to Joe Baker Photography. I don't really care about keywords because this is just test, but you can actually put them into yours if you want to. So we got our Canon selected. We come down here to the folder that we created, and then we select import. So now what it's doing over here, it's actually copying the files from the camera into that folder that we created and importing them into the Lightroom folder. Or not importing them into the Lightroom program. It does not create duplicate copies of your files. All it's doing is bringing in these pictures into Lightroom so it can actually use them. The neat thing about Lightroom is that it is non-destructive. So any edit that we make on our images is not ruining your image. All it's doing is recording the presets and editing that you do into the Lightroom catalog, and your raw file or your basic JPEG file or whatever file that you're on is actually being untouched. So you won't actually have a file to edit, or you won't mess up your file if you ever wonder if you ever screw up an edit or anything like that. All right, so we have 29 images that we imported. Usually at this time I turn off my camera, and I'm going to unplug it. And right now we're in the library module. Today I will only be worrying about the library module and the develop module. To be honest with you, I don't ever do the map, book, print, web. I don't ever touch those. I just haven't had a reason to lately. In the library module, this is where you can actually look through your images that you've imported. You can increase the size of the thumbnails down here. So if you want closer shots. You can look at them individually. I usually do it like this. And to be honest with you, I don't stay in the library module very much. I usually go straight over into the develop module. Everyone, like I said, is a little bit different. I usually do my picks and my favorites and all that stuff from the develop module. Over here we can see that we're in that folder that we created, the photo shoot 1028 Lightroom tutorial images. We come down here, we have 29 photos, and right now I've selected one. You can see your histogram for each of these images as well. I'm going to tell you most of the time that I spend in Lightroom is in the develop. So we're going to go into develop. And the way that I do my workflow is I'll start over here at this first picture. I'll zoom in. I'll take a look at it. If I like it, you can actually use the P, and that's flagged as a pick. Some people like to rate it. You can rate using 1 through 5, 5 being 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star. So in the rare instances that I shoot weddings, I will pick the ones that I want to edit, or I will mark them with 5 stars, and then I'll mark the ones that I will do minimal edits with 4 stars, and then I'll mark the ones that that they wanted to include with 3 stars. And then I can actually I can filter out the ones that I want to work on using the filters over here. We're going to go through here and I'm going to pick the ones that I like. So this one, we'll pick this one, my lovely model who was very enthused about shooting today. I'm going to go with this shot. There she is again. We'll get this one and this last one here. So you got all your picks, and you still, if you notice, you still have your film strip down here. You can actually go over here to your filters and go to flagged. And so it's only selected the 5 images that I had picked. And then I'll actually go into my editing. So let's start with this one. If you look up here, you can see the name of the file, the shutter speed that I shot at, the aperture, and then my ISO. And this is the lens that I was using. I was using my Sigma 50mm 1.4 art lens, which is, by the way, an awesome lens. I highly recommend it. I will start over here, and over here on the right hand side is all of our editing tools. And the way that I start out is I always go with my crop. I take my crop tool and I'm like, I want this, and you can see right now it's using the rule of thirds, but I think if you hit O, you have the different overlays for composition. This is the golden triangle. This is, I forget what that one's called, but you can see what I'm talking about. And then you can crop down to your image sizes here if you wanted to. I always go with rule of thirds, and I'll crop this up just a little bit because I want that spider right there in that top third, just like that. And you actually get a little preview up here in the top left of what your crop is. You can hit done. Oh, also with the crop tool, go back up to your crop, you can lock your aspect ratio. And I always keep it as original. If you unlock it, then that's basically telling you you can just make it any size that you want. I usually lock my aspect ratio. And I usually will export at the 4:6. If any of my customers ever want a different size, then I will actually make those changes for them. I don't ever change it or try to have different sizes. I stay with the one aspect ratio that I have. And then whenever they order, my website is set to I have to approve. So if they get a crop or they order a size that's weird and the crop shows white lines, I will actually go in and edit and re-upload an image that will fit better for the size that they're looking at. So I've had that question before, just so you know. Also with the crop tool, you can rotate here and straighten. And this one it doesn't matter, so we're gonna leave it alone. And then you hit done, and we've got it cropped. First thing over here, we have, this is our spot removal. If I wanted to remove one of these lights or get rid of a spot, I can hit the spot removal, or the keyboard shortcut is the letter Q. And you can see I have this little circle now. Let's say that I wanted to remove this orange spot right here. I can adjust my circle, click on it, and then it will pick a spot that it thinks. Lightroom is very bad about picking the spot that makes sense, so sometimes you have to change it around. In fact, I used to do this for when I was editing portraits, and pimple and blemish work was very difficult with Lightroom, especially for those that had a little bit more editing or more blemishes in their face to do. So, but yeah, so you would just come here. And then you can hit done, and you can see that it's gone. I actually like that there, so I can go back to my Q tool, and it brings up everything that I've highlighted. You can right click on it, and you can hit delete, and it's gone. There it is. Our next one is the red eye correction, and I don't ever mess with that. This is our graduated filter. So a graduated filter you draw this, you pull this down, and whatever effect that you're wanting to do, or whatever slider that you mess with, we'll change it according to the, it'll be more at the top and then slowly filter down. So like for example, if we increase the exposure here, you can see that it lightened the top and then it kind of blended down a little bit. Or if we can go this dark. This particular image doesn't need it, so we'll right click and delete. Oh, the red that you're seeing there actually shows you the effect and how much effect it is doing. You can actually hit the letter O to show you what that's doing. So right now, if I want to see O, I can hit the O and it'll show me the effect. We're going to right click and delete. We have our circular filter, our radial filter. So you can draw a circle here, and you can make the changes according to your sliders, either in the circle or outside the circle. I always do mine in the circle, so I have the invert mask checked, and I leave my feather right in the middle at 50%. So when I do exposure, let's see that I'm actually affecting inside the circle. If I wanted to, if I uncheck that, then it does the opposite. There you go. And I use this a lot, especially in portrait work, because I like to have the face pretty bright. So I will put a filter right on the person's face, and then I'll bump the exposure up a little bit just to kind of give it just a little bit more of an edge. We don't need it, so I'm going to delete. And then we hit done. Next thing here is our white balance. I don't know if you guys have seen my work, but I usually shoot a little warm. I like to see what the computer thinks, or what Lightroom thinks is the best color white balance. So I hit auto, and it cooled it down. As you can see, it added a lot more blue in here. I don't like that. So I'm going to leave it as shot because I like mine. I like a lot of orange and warm tones in my images, even this spider looking one. And then you can adjust your tint as well. So when I'm editing, I usually will hit the auto button just to see what it thinks. And I don't like it most of the time, but just to kind of get an idea. Sometimes it guesses pretty good. If I don't like it, then I can hit Command Z or Control Z on Windows, and it can turn it off. So I want to go down here, and we're going to bump up the exposure a little bit, bump up the contrast, pull some highlights down, bring up some shadows, some whites, and I actually like my blacks to be black, so you'll see me slide my black here pretty far down. Now, what happens to you is sometimes you start to clip the shadows, and if you click up here on your histogram, you can see that some of my shadow stuff is clipping or is too dark to show any detail. So I can actually, instead of messing with my blacks, I try to just bring up my shadows. And of course, it's up to you how you want to do it. It's your work and your art. So if you like it the way that it is, then just leave it there. Let's see if we have, it also shows me if I have any highlights that are blown. And from what I can tell, it's saying that these orange stuff is too bright, but I actually like it. We can actually mess with our clarity. I'll always add 10 clarity to pretty much every single image I do, because I like my stuff to be sharp and bright and very contrasty. Some of you see my work, you know that that's my style, and some of you may want to not add clarity. It's like I said, it's your choice. Vibrance affects, you can see that it goes there. I don't know if you can see this on YouTube. Saturation, I think, affects the blues and the greens. We're gonna leave it alone. I usually don't mess with this stuff, to be honest with you. We go down to our tone curve. I used to mess with this a lot, but it added more time, so I don't mess with it anymore. I'm telling you, my editing is pretty simple. A lot of people think that it looks like I do a lot of editing in my work, but I pretty much do the same thing to every piece, and I bet you a lot of you are like that too. You just picked, you have your workflow, and that's the way you like it. Like, I don't mess with any of this unless it's a super bright pink dress, then I'll mess with that. I don't ever do any split toning. I rarely do sharpening. One thing that I can show you on the sharpening though is you can actually use this masking tool. If you hold down the Alt and then make your slider, then you can see where you can actually tell it where you want that sharpening to take. And we're going right there. And then you can actually increase your sharpening here, and it's only going to affect those areas that we saw in the masking. Most of the time though, I don't mess with my sharpening. I will do some noise reduction depending on if I'm shooting late at night. The Canon 60 is pretty good about noise. I can probably get up into like the 4000 ISO before it starts getting really bad. And then on the noise reduction, I'll usually look at my ISO depending on what my ISO is. Like this is 200, then I'll come down here and change this to 20. I do whatever that percentage was. 10% of ISO 200 is basically how I do it. And I usually don't mess with any of the other stuff. Lens correction, I'll come down here and do some lens corrections. Enable profile correction. So if there's any type of vignetting that the lens has, or if there's any type of warping, you can click on this, and Lightroom, as long as it has the lens in its database, then it can help correct those things. Sometimes you don't even want it though. I kind of like the vignetting of this particular lens, so I probably wouldn't even correct it. And then we have over here our post-crop vignetting. And I usually don't even mess with this. I come over here to the presets that are built into Lightroom. And I actually will, and I copied some of the, let's see here. Yeah. So the Lightroom effect presets, I actually dragged it down into my own presets down here, so I wouldn't have to go hunting for it. So I go down here to my vignette, and it actually added more vignette. And then when we go down here to our effects on the right-hand side, you can see that it added a -35 vignette. On this particular image, I think that's a little too much, so I can hit Command Z, and I'll actually I like that. And you can see instead of -35, it's -15 over here. All right. So that's my first image that we've edited, and I think it's pretty good. So that's how I like it. If I wanted to, I could actually do a black and white, and this is like the best reason to have Lightroom. If I wanted a black and white version, I could right-click on it, create a virtual copy. And the neat thing about the virtual copy is it adds no disk space to your hard drive. It doesn't use up any disk space. It's just a basic snapshot of that particular image that you're working on. I'll go up here and do black and white. And I can get that black and white look and do it that way. Or I can come over here to our presets, and we have some black and white filter presets. Let's see, that blue filter. And you kind of go through here. Green filter looks kind of cool. And then infrared. Orange filter. And sometimes black and white doesn't work. So let's say that I didn't like it. I don't like it black and white. I can just right click on it and remove photo. And it's removing the selected virtual copy, and hit remove. Go from there. Cool. All right, let's go to, look, we actually have some roses blooming in my front yard. And I was at 1/4000 of a second, f1.4, ISO 200, and just like any other image I do, I go to the crop tool. If there's something that I could do to make it a little bit more pleasing composition-wise, I can do that. I actually like that. I'm a big rule of thirds guy, so we have this rose in this third of the image, and then I have this rose in the right third of the image. So we hit done, and I will come up here and check my white balance, and I think that's too cold, because that's, but you can also use this dropper tool. Select an area that you think is either white or neutral gray, and you can use your dropper tool to create a custom white balance that way. Most of the time I am a shot, and then I'll go to cloudy and see what that looks like, or I will go back down to, and then I'll just make manual adjustments myself until I like it. Like that. Then I will do the auto, and you can see that it's going to try to bring up the brightness. It felt that it was underexposed, but I didn't. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo. I wanted to have the black and dark background, so I'm actually going to pull the blacks down and pull my shadows down to where we've gotten rid of all of that extra stuff there. And basically I have a black background. We can play with our clarity. Don't ever do that. That's really ugly. We're going to go to +10. And I don't do any sharpening. I'll do some ISO stuff. Now this one might be a good candidate for black and white. So once again, we'll right click, create a virtual copy, come up here, go to black and white, and whenever I do my black and whites, this is kind of gray, and I want it to be white. So holding down the Alt on my keyboard, I can, when I hit my slider, it's going to go black, and then I can slide it, well, slide it, grab it, slide it until I see some white peeking, which is right about there, because we want just a little bit of that. So now we have some actual whites, and then I'll do the same thing on the black, but it looks like we got pretty good black areas. There we go. And so now that's kind of artsy. And then you may even want to bring up the exposure a little bit. And maybe not. That's the cool thing about Lightroom, guys. You can actually just play with it until you get to what you're looking for or what makes you happy with your image. And then I want to increase the clarity a little bit more here. There you go. And so back to our Q tool. I don't like this little spot here. Oh, it's a bug. Oh my gosh. So I'll use my Q tool, my spot removal, and I'll actually zoom in on it. Hit that. And it's going to pick an area that didn't make any sense. So I'm going to drag it over here and kind of match up the edge. Kind of go like that. And done. And then Z. There you go. Remember, I'm not a big pixel peeper. You guys may find some people that are big pixel peepers and want to take a look and see how detailed you got it. But they are not going to be able to, you know, most people when they print a photograph, you're not going to zoom in like this and be like, oh my gosh, it's dull right here. Or it's out of focus, or it's fuzzy or whatever. And in fact, see these little black spots? I'm not liking that. So we're going to hit Q again. Just like that. And drag this over here. Go. I'm bringing this down here. This little black spot. Now I'm only using the circle, but you can actually, let's say we wanted to get rid of these spots. You don't have to just do a circle. You can actually just draw like this and paint it and kind of go from there. But that one I liked, so we're going to delete that. And then done. Now on all my black and white images, come down here to the bottom, and I'll actually add grain or noise, whatever you want to say, to give it more of the classic type look. You can see the grain. I don't know if you guys can see it on YouTube, but there's some grain there. So this, if you hit the backslash button on your keyboard, this is what we started with. This is what we ended with. And then we created a black and white copy. That's what we started with after we made a copy of that. And then this is what we ended up with. All right. Do we still have everybody? Am I boring you to death? Are we learning anything? Hello, hello. All right. Let's go. We're running about 38 minutes now. I'm actually just going to go into a portrait edit. And this is my favorite model, and this is my daughter. And we are going to, just like I do everything else, I go up here into my crop tool. And then I like to chop off heads. I will chop off heads, and I'll make sure that my fence is straight because I like to have a frame of reference. Some people like to use the Dutch tilt method, and I think that's dumb, but everybody has their own unique style. So I'm going to change this, and we're going to cut right there. Right there. I like to put people's eyes right on that third line. All right, so I hit done. Then I will go to my white balance, see what the Lightroom thinks it should do. And see, it always likes to go cool. I like to be warm, so I will stay as shot. And I'll probably go down just a little bit. There you go. We'll go to 5800. Yeah, that looks good. And then she's got a few blemishes here on her skin. So we'll zoom in. And then I'll use the Q tool. And then I'll go over that blemish. Go over here. She has a blemish here. Here. There. Couple that. Now, you see this little hair? It kind of is annoying me. So we're going to try to see what Lightroom can do with it. We can draw on it. And you can see that it actually did a pretty good job. It's there. And this. There. And instead of hitting done and scrolling through the picture, you can actually hold down the space bar and that'll change it to the move tool. And that way you can move without actually changing from your Q tool. So if I hold down the space bar, I can move up and down and go from there. All right. You can see she has this one little hair right here, and I can tell you I would probably go into Photoshop to remove it because it's going to be really hard to do it with Lightroom. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I'm not liking that. And it kind of looks natural. And nobody's going to be zoomed in that much. So, I'm going to hit Z. You can see all the spots. You can actually, as long as you have your tool overlay here to auto, whenever you take your cursor off of the actual image, you can kind of see what work you've been doing. You can see the those points disappear. You also have this visualize spots here to help you get rid of it just takes away the color and shows you some detail or textures, so it can help you spot those other spots. I don't use that very much, to tell you the truth. And then we'll hit that. All right. So I will now make my basic adjustments. So I hit auto and see what the computer thinks, and of course it gets it wrong. A lot of times though, when I hit auto, I'll leave it and then I'll just make my adjustments. Like I want to bring down the highlights a little bit. And then I like to have, she's wearing a black coat, but it doesn't look black. So I'll actually drop it way down. There you go. And I can bring up the shadows if I feel that there's any shadow clipping. Yeah, there's a little bit in her hair. You can bring up the shadows. But I like to have my blacks. Okay. And then I will go over here to our clarity. I'll hit 10 on that. And then come down to my noise reduction, 20. And the noise reduction, the luminance will actually smooth her skin a little bit. You don't really want to go too high on the noise reduction because then it over smooths the skin. We'll look and see if we want to do some profile correction. Nope, I want to do that. Then we have up here our brushes. And this is where we get into our adjustment brush work. Oh, actually, you see how bright that pink is? This is actually one of the times when I will make adjustments using our HSL. So right now we're on the saturation. There's this little tool right here, and I can drag it. I'm gonna grab it. I can grab it, and it'll tell me which color that I need to reduce the saturation in on a specific area. Okay? So looks like I need to tone down the red a little bit. I come here, I can drag the red down just so it's not so overpowering. There we go. Problem is, it's going to affect the entire image. So if you have a bunch of red throughout the image, then this slider will affect the entire image. Done on that. I'm going to go back up to our adjustment brushes. On our adjustment brushes, we have all kinds of different choices here. When you click on the drop down or the arrows here, these are the ones that are built in. You have your temperature, your tint, exposure, contrast, highlights, so forth and so on. Your burn, your dodge, iris enhance, soften skin, and teeth whitening. I actually, whenever you go to the soften skin, because that's what we're about to do, on the soften skin, what it does is it reduces the clarity of whatever you brush. And right now, the default one that's built in there is -100. And to me, that overdoes it. So I actually made a change. I created my own called Soften Skin -70. So instead of -100 clarity, I do -70 clarity. And then down here on my brush, you can have two different brushes, your A and your B brush. On my A brush, which is what I use most of the time, I put my flow down to 70%. So I don't want to make it look too much like I overdid her skin. I want it to look like I did something to her skin, but it doesn't need to be so smooth that it looks totally fake. I try to keep the auto mask on. It's usually pretty good about picking which areas that I want to paint. And then I'll leave my density at 100. So you can see here, my size will change depending on how I make my brush. And then I usually have my feather, and that's the circle around the outer circle that the brush has less effect. So if you had a feather right here, then it would be a hard edge, and we kind of want a soft edge. So like 80 is probably good. There you go. I don't know if you can see it. You can see it right there, yeah. So we're about to soften our skin. So I will hit the letter O because I want to see where I'm actually painting on her skin. And you can see right there, it's turning red. I'm going to go over that, and I'm going to change my brush size. On my Mac, all I have to do is just move my finger up and down to adjust the size of the brush. I also have a Wacom tablet that I can do this as well, but I'm trying to do this like I used to in the old days. I know not everybody has a tablet, so I wanted to show you guys how I did it with just a mouse. So I will change the size here, and I can paint in this under her face, on her cheeks, around her nose, line around. You could also just paint over her entire face, this, with a bigger brush, if you were like wanting to move it along. Paint over her entire face, like that, and her neck. So I painted over her entire face. If I hold down the Alt, now I have a subtract. So we don't want to soften. And you can see over here on the right, when I hold down my Alt, I went to the erase brush. And on the erase brush, I usually don't have a feather. I want it to be pretty hard. So I'll come over here and we'll zoom in by hitting the letter Z. I'll scroll over to her eyebrows because we don't want to soften her eyebrows. Hold down the Alt, you can see, and then I will brush over it just like that. Change the size of it, and I'm just using my mouse. We want to get rid of this. And go over her eyebrows. We don't want to lose the detail in her eyelashes. So we'll erase over that. And if she was looking at the camera, you'd want to do that for her eyes because you want her eyes to be sharp. Do it there. And then I'm going to use my, hit the spacebar, drag down and go to her lips. We don't want to soften her lips. And take that. Do it that way. There we go. So, and then we'll zoom back out. And you can see that we got everything unpainted that we want. I recommend using the O to see where you painted because a lot of times you can't tell what you've done on their skin without it. So now I'm going to turn it off and we can kind of see what it did to her skin. Hit done. You can see, you can tell that it did something, but we still have skin textures and we still have, it looks like normal skin. It doesn't look overdone. Because a lot of times what people, especially newer photographers, will do, they'll smooth out the skin, but they'll do it so much there's no skin texture, so it doesn't look real. So like we want to see the skin texture. So whenever you get into retouching your images, especially portraits, do not overdo the skin. It's really, you can really tell if you overdo it. The other good thing is, if I wanted to go back in and kind of adjust this, I can click my brush here, and you can highlight this and click on it, and we can actually use the sliders and it'll change the effect. I'm going to make a pretty big drastic change so you can kind of see. And it's only those areas that I painted. So I can do this and go back to where I was at. Like I think it was still a little too much. But we'll leave it at -70. Oops. And just type it into 70, just like that. And I kind of don't like the highlights. So because I've already got her skin selected, then I can change the highlights and it's only going to affect the areas that I've brushed on. And you can see that I can change those highlights there just by doing this slider. And it doesn't affect any of the other parts of the image, just her face. And you can see that. 12. I'm just probably, yeah, just a little bit. All right. So we've done that. We've done her face. It looks good. It's not overdone. I like it. So I'll hit done. But if you ever wanted to go back and fix it, you can always click here and you can highlight that pin and hit O and it make your adjustments at that point. Now, let's say that I wanted to do something for her hair. Then I can come up here to the brush. And let's say that I wanted to add some, I don't know, if I wanted to reduce the highlights in her hair. It shows that it's a -100. I got a brush, my same brush, and I usually leave it at 70. The size and the feather are the same, and I can just go over it, her hair. like that. You can see it's making little subtle changes. If I wanted to increase exposure over here, because that's the area that I brushed, I can do that. I can raise up the shadows. And using my letter O, you can see what I'm affecting. Okay. Cool. We hit done. So now we've had two separate adjustment brushes, one for her hair and then one on her face. We did the skin smoothing. And there's still these little spots that I don't like on her jacket. So now we have a dog that gets fur all over the place. So I'm going to go back to my Q tool and try to get rid of some of the bigger hairs. And you're just going to go here. And like I said, sometimes it selects spots that don't make any kind of sense. There. Okay. All right. Cool. So we smoothed her skin, all that stuff. I like to add a vignette. So I'll come over here to the vignette. And that kind of darkens the background a little bit and puts more emphasis on her face. In this particular instance, though, I think it's too much. So I'll go back to the other vignette. And to me, guys, your vignette should be very barely visible. You shouldn't have any type of visible vignette unless it's helping the image center on your subject. I think a lot of people get used to putting vignettes that are so obvious they kind of detract from the image. And the other thing that I don't like is you can actually come down here to your vignetting and you can do the white vignetting. And that is, to me, if I see white vignetting, it's the very, and this is just my opinion, I automatically think that person is new to editing. Because this is kind of like JCPenney type stuff. So I'm here to help you like move past that and get onto something else and make your images pop without having to use the those old school tricks like that. So let's go. And I can actually just kind of get it to where I wanted. I think 20 would be pretty good. Okay. So we started by hitting my backspace button. This is where we started. And this is how we ended up. You can see I do very subtle editing. And you can kind of go over there. Like the pink, we got her jacket is more black. And we added a slight vignette. And we pulled up some of the shadows in her hair. I actually think this would be a better image in black and white. So we are going to create a virtual image, a virtual copy. And then come back up here to black and white. And you can see that with black and white, it takes that her scarf is not so prominent, and it takes that out of the image. And now we can focus, the focus is more on her face. Yeah, not that anything's wrong with JCPenney's. So, just like on the flower image, I'm going to hold down the Alt because I want whites. So I'm going to come up here and drag this until I start seeing just little bits and pieces of white. And then I want to make sure that I have blacks. And we do have blacks. Now, on people's skin tones, what will happen is their face will look gray and it doesn't pop. So if you want to make their skin tones pop whenever you go to black and white, play with this orange slider here. I'll show you why. So grab your tool here, and skin tones are actually orange. So whenever you go to the orange, you can actually make her skin pop a little bit more like that. Now, I'm not going to leave it like this, but you can see that it's really affecting her skin. And I want to make sure that her skin doesn't look too gray. Cool. All right. And just like I did in my other black and white, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add some grain. 20. And so when I zoom in, it's going to kind of give it that newspaper feel. I think I'm going to reduce some highlights too. I'm going to go up here. So another tip, whenever you convert to black and white, you're not done editing. Make sure that you're editing your black and whites even further. I'm going to pull down our highlights here a little bit. A lot. And then probably, let's see here. Maybe reduce the, there we go. Because my daughter's skin is dark. She's dark like me, so I want to make sure that it's not over white. But you may be making those adjustments depending on your image. So, we got a black and white one. I am pretty much done with this session as far as editing. I think they came out pretty good. I got this one here and this one, and I did this one here. So I think 3 images is good. One of the questions that I saw was, when you export, how do I put my watermark on it? Up here to the top, you can go to Edit. Wait, where is it at? It changed it on me. File. Oh, go to your Lightroom and then go to Edit Watermarks. Now on mine, I've created 8 logos basically. And what I'll do is, if I wanted to create a new one, I created my logo with Word basically, and then I pulled it over into Photoshop and I made it a PNG so the background was clear. So I can go over here and create a custom watermark. I would hit choose, and then I would navigate to my watermark that I made. And on this one, we're going to go here. And I have my logos. See, and I created a white horizontal, high res, no background PNGs. So once you actually created it, make it a PNG. So I'm going to click this one here. And then hit choose. And it shows you where your logo is going to sit. You can actually come down here and tell it where you want it to go. By clicking, if you want in the middle, that, right, all those good stuff. You can tell it that you want it to be inset a little bit. And then you want just off the edge. You see what I'm doing? I'm just changing the inset. You can also change the size. If I wanted to go over the top of it, I could do that. But I would say just about there. And I've already done this for, I have a black logo on images that are white, and then I have a white logo on images that are darker in color, so they stand out. So I'm not going to save that. I'm going to hit cancel. And then when I go to export, I will right click and I'll go to export. You have all of these export options. This is what I do. I will export to the same folder as the original photo, and I tell it to put it in a subfolder called Lightroom Edits. So whenever I'm going to my Finder and I click on this one, I go down to my folder that says Lightroom Edits. It has all of my exports in there, and you can see they're all JPEGs. Close this out. So I'm telling Lightroom that I want to go ahead and create a subfolder and put it Lightroom Edits. If there are existing files that have the same names, I'm telling it to choose a new name for the exported file. I don't tell it to rename it. Right now it's just going to do the whatever the raw file name was and then put a JPEG. You can tell the extension to be uppercase or lowercase. I usually do lowercase. Quality, I usually set to 80. Image format is a JPEG. The color space is sRGB. I don't change any of that. If it's for printing or for one of my customers, then I do 300 resolution. If I'm just doing for Facebook exports, then I change it to 72 resolution. So that way, whenever they are on Facebook, if they want a Facebook image, I change it to 72. If they were to try to print that image, it's going to be really crappy. But for my customers, I have a standard export and I tell it to print at the highest resolution possible. Output sharpening, I want it to be sharp for whenever they print it, so I go ahead and click on sharpen for glossy paper and then I tell the amount high. And I have had any complaints about any of my images from my customers. And this is what I use right here. I tell it to include metadata, remove personal info, remove location info. I actually don't use my location info. The 6D has a GPS feature on it. I don't turn that on. And then for my customers, I don't watermark. My website will actually watermark for me, but if I wanted to watermark, I could click on the watermark and then choose one of the 8 options that I did. And for this image, I want my watermark on the right-hand side. So I'm going to say white logo, bottom right. And then I'll hit export. Up here, you can see it's exporting one file. And I don't know why it's taking so long to do this. There you go. Export one file. So if we go back into my Finder and we go back to the very first folder that I created, which is down here, our Lightroom tutorial images. It created a folder called Lightroom Edits. And there's my export right here. And if we were to double click on that, it should show it. And you can see there's my watermark right there. Just like that. The other good thing about Lightroom is I can select multiple images. I'm going to go hold down Command or Control in Windows. I will select those 3 images, and I think having my logo on the left-hand side. So I'll right-click on that, export, and I'll come down here to the bottom. Everything stayed the same, but I want my white logo on the bottom left. And then I'll hit export. And you can see up here that it's exporting 3 files. So the way that I do it when I do a session is I'll edit all of my images. Well, okay, so first I will flag all the images I want to edit, and then I will edit all of those images that are flagged, and then I will export them all. So that's my workflow. So you can see that it's done. We go back into our folder, pictures, 2015 photo shoots, Lightroom edits, and you can see that they're all there. I'll bring up that one. And it has my little logo here. Bring photography, and you can see all that. All right. Well, we're way over an hour here. We're about like an hour and 5 minutes. I apologize if I've been boring or whatever. So, I don't time these. I don't have a script. I just kind of go with it, which is kind of bad. I probably should work on that. But do you guys have any questions right now? Yeah, we're in an hour and 9 minutes is what it looks like. Questions. This one. while I'm waiting for some questions. I'll do this. Let me show you. I'm going to do cloudy. Then I'll go here, auto. Change this. Drop my blacks in. Make my shadows up. Anyone? Anyone? Questions? Questions? Here's my noise reduction. Oh, Ashley, wow, good. That's good. No questions from Ashley. Anybody else? I'm just kind of showing you how I would quickly go through this. It seemed like it took forever, but once you get the hang of it, you can actually do your edit pretty fast. Oh. When you export with watermark, does the edit one still not watermarked? The edit one that's in down here will not have a watermark. It's only whenever you export. So if you screwed up and let's say that you put the watermark on the wrong side, then you can export it again. It'll create another copy with the watermark on the opposite side. I hope did that answer your question? This one, add a vignette. Look at her face. Back up here with my Q tool. See, this one, it freaking did that where their hair in it. Are there two shots, one with one? Are there two shots, one with one and without saved? I think you're trying to ask me. So remember, you're not actually messing with your file. So that one is not on there per se. When I'm editing this file, I am not actually editing the file. I know it's crazy. Lightroom is saving those steps that I did for that file, so there is not another file. How do you export to Photoshop or other programs? Export to Photoshop. Okay, so for example, this image that I'm working on right now, she has hair in her face. It is very difficult to do with Lightroom. You can actually right click and go to edit and then edit in Adobe Photoshop. The neat thing about Lightroom is, so I'm going to edit in Photoshop. It's going to open up Photoshop. And here it comes. So now I have this file in Photoshop. And when I edit in Photoshop, I think some of you guys have seen some, if you watch my past things, I kind of do, wait. I want to do this. Wait, what are you doing? Shift Command W. Wow. Okay, let's start over again. I don't know what happened there. Don't save. Back, right click, edit, Photoshop. Don't know how to ask intelligent question. Oh, it was intelligent. Just took me a second to see what you're talking about. Save. What is going on here? This is weird. I thought I was going to answer your question quickly, Lisa. I apologize. Yeah, but usually I would just go here, edit in Photoshop, edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments, hit edit. There we go. And then I will go up here to Window, Arrange, New Window, and then I will go Window, Arrange, 2 up vertical. So I can have this copy small, and if I need to do detail work, I can zoom in on this side and see how it's affecting it on the smaller view. Because I'm going to zoom in pretty close on her face because she's got hair in her face. That. Does that answer your question, Lisa? The other thing that you can do is like, if you had other programs installed, you can go edit in like a Fusion Express 2. I think there's one called Nick. You can actually edit in Nick software and stuff like that. So go back to Photoshop there. Lisa, did I lose you? What happened to my thing? All right, guys. I'm going to continue editing this particular image because it's bugging me, the hair in her face. And I'm looking for my stylus for my welcome tablet. Of course, most of you know me, so you can actually message me on Facebook if you have any questions. And we can kind of go from there. But I appreciate you guys coming in on it. And if you have any comments or things that I could do better, please let me know. I appreciate it. But guys, have a good night. It is 9:46. It's bedtime. Actually, it's time to play Halo. That's what it's time to do. Because Halo 5 just came out. I think it is time to play. All right, guys, y'all have a good night. Thanks. And I will actually save this recording so you can actually go back and reference it in the future. Thank you again.